to another episode of Splash Considerations. My name is Justice De Los Santos, San Francisco Giants beat reporter for the Bay Area news group San Jose Mercury News, East Bay Times, whatever you want to call us, as long as you read, as long as you subscribe. And speaking of subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Apple, follow us on Spotify. A lot of things in this world cost a lot of money, but subscribing and following, those things remain free 99 and just a moment of your time. And I'm joined now by a national baseball reporter for CBS Sports. He might live in Boston, but he's the king of Harlem. Julian McWilliams, how we doing?
I'm good, man. I like that intro. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. We had the upsell. I got the Colson Whitehead. It's somewhere in here. I told you I had it lob it your way, so we gotta pay some respect when the king of Harlem is in attendance.
I appreciate that, man.
So
I'm glad to be here. I appreciate it.
For sure. So obviously we were in Boston I was in Boston. You were obviously always in Boston this past weekend for the homecoming of Rafael Devers. It didn't go the Giants' way. They get swept. Depending on your perspective or not, Rafi got his lick back in a way. He did hit a homer in his first game back, but I think the one thing that we were both very curious about going into this series is what was the reception going to be, because Devers obviously accomplished a lot during his time in Boston, the 2018 World Series, 3 All-Stars, 2 Silver Sluggers, but it also ended pretty badly. He was also willing to play a position in San Francisco that he didn't want to play in Boston. So we talked about this off camera, but kind of walk me through what you expected going into this weekend as somebody that covered Rafi for the Boston Globe and still covers the Red Sox now, as well as, your reaction to how things actually kind of played out here.
Yeah, I feel like he came here and when he first got to Boston, and I'll get to your question, but he was sort of like the joyful, carita, smiling kid who's just hit, right? And it was a time where that's literally what he did, was he just had to hit. And then all of a sudden it became the priority of him having to be the guy in a number of ways, be it off the field with the media. And that never really sat well with Rafi. There was a time where, we can get into it later. I'll just answer your question. But for his reception, I expected it to be mixed, honestly. And it seemed to veer toward more it being more boos than anything. But at the same time, I don't feel like those boos came from a place of vitriol. I do believe in their heart of hearts, Red Sox fans do love Rafael Devers. They won a championship with him. He was their best. He has the most home runs amongst any third baseman that has ever played the position. He's been with the organization since he was 16 years old. And when the boos first came, I was like, dang, and his first at bat. But then you started hearing the other people that came out and were like,
they were like popping out a little bit.
Come on, guys. Like, let's settle down here a little bit. Like, this isn't Alex Verdugo we're talking about. Like, this is Rafael Devers, a guy who is still one of the more unique and talented hitters in all of baseball, and was at his peak when he was with us. And we did have more good memories than bad memories. And I think once the dust settles, Justice, and once we get past this initial introduction of him back into Boston in a Giants uniform or whatever uniform he ends up being in, he's going to end up a Red Sox Hall of Famer. He's going to be celebrated. He's going to get his flowers. And during the thing that was concerned me the most, where I was like, this would be cringe, because I knew he was going to get a tribute video. I knew that. But I was like, are they going to boo during his tribute video? And they didn't. They had enough respect to at least give him a little bit more cheers than they did in his at-bat, and respect him for the time that he had here, because for the most part, it was productive.
Yeah, that was when they played the tribute video, this is a side note. As much as I hate like Dodger Stadium and Yankee Stadium, like turning the volume up, I think Fenway, maybe it's just where we are in the press box. I think they need to turn the acoustics.
Turn it up, right?
I can barely hear what's happening.
You can't hear the music. You can't hear. I say they have the bummiest speakers in all of baseball.
Like Aroldis Chapman's, like his walkout, like, is dope. Like, I'm forgetting the name of the song, but like it's an iconic song, and I'm like hold my ear, but like I can barely hear it. Whereas like Dodger Stadium and Fenway Park, their acoustics team needs to meet together, and they got to find like where's
A
the
happy
middle.
balance of and you could throw Yankee Stadium. I think you mentioned Yankee Stadium too.
Yeah,
Like
it's too much.
Yankee Stadium has now become Dodger Stadium because Judge wanted it to sound like Dodger Stadium because he felt like Dodger Stadium, and it's too much. It's just blaring in your ears. But then you go to Fenway and it's like
Yeah, you
it's
can
like
barely hear anything.
you can't
Which,
hear anything.
which
Walkout songs, you can't hear nothing. It's like, yo, what do y'all do with y'all speakers? When I went to the Chris Brown concert, I'm like, yo, these speakers gonna sound like that? Are these speakers? No, they're not. So clearly they have the depth to be able to the means to be able to do so, but yeah, the speakers are trash, bro. Sound like a 1992 Honda Accord.
I want to say, I will say this. I will say this. I think the consistent favorite part of all three of the games that I had there covering there was Sweet Caroline in the going into the
Oh
bottom
my
of the eighth
God.
inning. So I want to say this. I want to say this because the Giants for the longest time. Yeah, I don't think is that a is that some disdain? Do you not like Sweet Caroline?
Oh no, no, just no
No,
way. No more. No
no
more.
more. This is
Almost
a hard disagree. Hard disagree. I could not disagree more.
almost I be having stop and having fun with. I'm done with it. Like Drake said, I am done with it. Like the first time I heard it, I was like, this is cool. But after every single look, that like you realize who the gentrifiers are when they I don't even know if I'm using the right word or the yuppies. I don't know what I because obviously Fenway's not gentrified. I mean Fenway is very yeah.
It's old
Uh
school.
yeah, it's very old school Boston, but you do realize the out of towners and the sort of the people that come out that are not fans when they're singing Sweet Caroline when your team just got ran off and they're down 9-0 in the eighth inning. Like it comes on no matter what. And so I feel like there needs to be a time and place for it. Like the Yankees, they got rid of it's up to you, New York, when they lose.
Oh
Like
yeah,
for
New
years
York, New
doing
York.
it, they were doing it when they won or lost. And so now they just preserve for their when they win because it's like, why are we playing this in a loss? And so with Sweet Caroline, it's like, why are we playing this when y'all team just gave up a top of the eighth inning,
Soul crushing Homer.
10 runs, but they're playing the Giants, so I guess it's okay. But I'm just sick of the song, dude. I can't do it.
I mean, I will say for the longest time, what the Giants used to do is when they were losing, I think it was going into the eighth, bottom of the eighth. When they were losing, they played "Don't Stop Believing." When they were winning, they would play "Lights." And you can only imagine in a season like this one, if they were still doing that, it would be a lot of "Don't Stop Believing," which would get really annoying really fast to that point. So I guess I was talking about this with Alex Pavlovich. Like, I kind of want to go back to like having that as opposed to the sing along inning where it's like songs with like no connection to the city. There's got to be like
Yeah.
some. There's got to be some way the Giants can bring like back a consistent song into the rotation. Anyhow, we're
40.
we have veered way off topic from the Rafael Devers of the world. I'm kind of curious about your opinion on when he held court on that Friday, and a lot of the questions were pretty standard fare. They asked him, "What do you think it's like to be back?" He said he didn't know what the reception was going to be. He talked about playing first base. I think it was funny. The pretty much every question that he answered required an interpretation from team interpreter Erwin Higueros, but the one that didn't, because it was just one word, which was, "Do you have any regrets?" And he said no. Did he regret, how he handled the Bregman thing, the Tristan Cassis thing, all of it? No. So what was your kind of reaction to him just, not having any regrets to that? And he did say, it's been a year, I've matured, yada yada yada.
That,
But
that's what I was gonna. That's what I was gonna point to. I'm not sure if I would say I would have regret. I just look. I spoke to somebody who's really close to Rafi. Well, and he says, dude, I love the guy. Like he's great, but like he is one of the most stubborn people you'll ever meet. He said, Rafi, if the sky is blue, you know the sky's blue. Hey, the sky's blue out right now. Like in Vallejo and San Diego, San Francisco, it's
you want to get that
Oakland,
Vallejo in.
sky's blue.
You want to sneak
In
that in.
In Boston, it might be a little bit gray. He says, But if you're saying it's blue and you know it's blue, Rafi might say, nah, it's red. Like, that's just who he is in terms of you can't really tell him. Like, once he has his mind made up, he has his mind made up. And for the most part, for the last 2 years, a year and a half, so he's stuck with that. Like, the thing that I do, I will say that, and I'll answer your question because I'm veering off. That I do appreciate about Rafi is that he says everything that he means, and he means everything that he says, right?
Hmm.
And like he says it, and it might rub people the wrong way. Like I remember there was a time where, and I don't know how your PR staff is, but sometimes our PR staff, when in Boston, when I was covering the team, would sort of PR it up a little bit more, his answers, and just kind of, make sure even out the edges a little bit more, and sand down the edges to make sure it's not as curt and as sharp as he means it to be. And Rafi knows perfect English. Greg Levinsky, the guy that you were sitting next to, who's filling in for MLB.com, used to be the ball boy for, I believe, Double A Portland in Maine, because I believe he's from Maine. And he's known Rafi since he was like 17, 18 years old. And he's like, dude, he's not speaking English. Like, he knows perfect English. Like, this is like, it was bizarre to him that Rafi wasn't speaking. Rafi knows perfect English. So I remember there was this one time where Rafi said something, and the PR staff was trying to PR it up a little bit more. Rafi stopped him midway and was like, no, like blah 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 blah. Say it like this. This you're not saying what I said. This is what I said. And so the guy was like, oh, okay, and like actually said what he said at that time. So he's not a dumb guy when it comes to what he wants to say, what he mean, what he really means what he wants to say. So I go back to his comment of like, yeah, sure, he's not gonna say he has any regrets, but that little window that he gave us of we mature, we grow up, things happen, we move on. That's not something that Rafi would have said last year.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, it got to a point where it was dividing the clubhouse, it was dividing the front office, dividing the coaching staff. The team was losing games, and Rafi still was not coming off of the fact of I'm not gonna play first base. Y'all told me to throw away my glove. So I do see in that vein him realizing and probably him coming back and being on the opposite side probably was like, dang, like this this place actually meant something to me because it did.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell, and it was like a really awkward, like when they did the tribute video and like they panned to him, like it was kind of awkward. Like I think he was in
But
that moment, like
it seemed like
internalizing.
it seemed like for him it was relief
Yeah.
that it wasn't the boo or the or because and then you saw the smile of him come out that I
Hmm.
haven't seen in a while, that smile that he was sort of known for, and it seemed like a genuine smile of relief and happiness of like, okay, this place doesn't hate me as much as I probably thought they would have, because even this place is so it can be a little bit like, even when Mookie came back, Mookie did nothing wrong. Mookie got traded. Mookie didn't say, trade me. Like Rafael Devers came out and said to the front office, hey, to trade me. Mookie, it wasn't like I wasn't going to play first base. Mookie just got traded. Mookie wanted his fair value, for market value, fair market value. Wanted to go to free agency. Didn't end up going to free agency because of COVID, and ended up signing an extension with the Dodgers. But otherwise, he would have gone to free agency for sure. But even when he came back, he was like, I didn't know what the reception was going to be. And it's like, why, Mookie? You won an MVP in the World Series with this team. Like, you were one of the best players of this generation. You were the best player of this generation, hands down. Right? Like, what do you mean? You weren't sure what the ovation was going to be. Clearly, it was going to be all love. Like, so that's how. But this place can get in your mind like that.
Hmm.
And for Rafi, the way he left, it was like, I'm sure the days leading up to it, he's like, dang, bro, I don't know what it's gonna be. And in the grand scheme of things, it ended up being all right.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, I remember
Like the
watch. I
boost
re
for the boost for me, I'm sorry to cut you off. Like
Yeah, yeah.
the boost for me came from a place of like their son being like, pow, 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 pow. How could you?
Hmm.
But I still love you though. Like it wasn't like when Jose Altuve comes here. Like
Yeah,
that's a different type of boo. Like that guy's been for the cheating scale. He's been getting, and it's weird because it's like, dog, you're the manager of the team was in on it too.
That's neither here nor there. That's
What are
neither
we
here
doing?
nor there.
But when Jose Altuve comes here, it is bad, and it wouldn't. And I'm sure Rafi's like, dang, it's gonna be that, but it wasn't that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like in the days leading up to it, I was thinking of some of the more memorable, like quote unquote home, and I say air quotes, quote unquote homecoming. It's really you're going back to a place that's not going to welcome you. And I thought about LeBron going back to Cleveland, KD
That
going
was
back to
bad
OKC, and
though.
like it was
That was
not going to be that. I knew
that
it
was
wasn't going to
victory.
be that, but it was kind of like to your point, it kind of seems like we wish it ended better. Like there's a lot of hurt going on that still like needs to mend, but in time, like 10, 15 years from now, like I don't think it's gonna be booze when Rafael Devers go back to
No,
Fenway.
and also they've won since he's left too.
Yeah. Well, so that leads into, another question is that at the time of the trade, it was the Father's Day trade of 2025. The Giants were, I think they entered that day 10 games above 500. I think the Red Sox were kind of in a nebulous position, and both teams have kind of gone in complete opposite directions since that trade. And obviously, this is a Giants podcast. We've talked a lot about what's happened since that year. But from the Red Sox perspective, despite losing, depend arguably their best hitter at the time, and pretty much getting nothing of the guys they got back from that trade because Hicks is gone, Harrison is gone, Tibbs is gone. You got Jose Bayo still. What's allowed the Red Sox to still be the team they are, be in position to win, to capture a wild card spot, despite again losing their best hitter and pretty much getting nothing, at least directly out of the trade? I know you got Caleb Durbin and Monasterio out of it as well.
Yeah, I feel like they've gotten a lot of production one from their pitching staff. Like keep in mind, Garrett Crochet's been out the entire season, and when he comes back, it's going to be in the bullpen. They've Greg Breslow's done a really good job. One thing I will give him credit for is developing their pitching development team and going out and getting the right guys, be it Sonny Gray, Ranger Suarez, um, you know, goes down the list goes on. Jake Bennett for a while, you never really heard of him. Peyton Tolley, that seems like a guy that could be a number one or number two someday. Like they've gotten such good production from their pitching staff. Eric Miller, they went out and got him and traded like put his foot down and traded Marcelo Mayer for him.
We
Like
will get into that in a second.
they've done a really, really good job at pinpointing pitching talent and being able to get the most out of their pitchers. They've done a tremendous job with that. And then I just feel like they've gotten a lot of production from their not their others. They're guys that are your second tier uh, platoon bench players, be it Andrew Monasterio, Nick Sogard, Anthony Siegler. Like these guys are playing out of their minds, and I don't know how sustainable it is. Wilson Contreras obviously has been one of the better players in the big leagues this year. He's always been a really good player, but this year he seemed to take it to a new level. Um, Caleb Durbin has come on. So like they're doing Cedar Rafaela, Wilyer Abreu, like those three guys, Wilyer Abreu, Cedar Rafaela, Wilson Contreras are the linchpins to the team. And Cedar and Wilyer have both taken step forward at the plate where they've been able to find their floors, especially Cedar and Rafaela, like not having the high highs and low lows, where the low lows are suddenly just sinking a team because you're so bad. No, he's been able to maintain his floor even when he's not feeling well at the plate, and that's a sign of maturation for me. Abreu's been able to slug at an elite level that we haven't seen from him since he's been called up. Wilson Contreras has been able to slug and be sort of that leader of a team while playing Gold Glove first base. Like that matters. But then you got the pitching staff coupled with the guys that are playing completely out of their minds. This is the reason why this team's in the position that they're in. And they're doing it in ways that are against the training methodology, which I've written about, and the story's going to come out soon on like the drive line thing. They're not doing that. They're bunting. They're hitting balls behind runners they're hitting the balls behind to the right side of the field with runners on base to get the man over. Sacrifice flies. Like it is just such productive baseball, stealing bases. Their defense is a lot better. Um, they top to bottom, they just been just proven themselves to just be a really, really solid ball club. And when you do all the little things right, that amount to these winning streaks and heaters that they've been on. Not maybe not the 16 in a row, but the 4 wins in a row, the 5 wins, the 6 wins. Then maybe you lose a series here, but then you win the next two. Like that's a sustainable club. I don't know how sustainable it'll be in the postseason when you ultimately need superstars. I feel like to ultimately hold up that trophy, but it certainly worked for them in the regular season, and more power to them because they got rid of Cora, they got rid of their entire coaching staff, and Craig Brezo's made bold moves in each of the last 2 years. Got rid of Rafael Devers, got rid of Alex Cora, and both times they've been able to respond. So you got to give credit where credit's due.
You mentioned 4 wins in a row. The Giants have still yet to win 4 wins in a row, which if they're gonna try to hold off on losing 100, they might need to do that at some point. Which that kind of leads into the next question I wanted to ask in regards to Rafi, because I don't know if you saw the injury updates that happened yesterday with the Giants, but Willie Adames hit the injured list. He had that play at the plate on Sunday where he collided with Connor Wong. Victor Barracoto, he had that weird play with the fan interference.
That's
He had to
yeah.
he was trying to avoid getting hit by the ball. It kind of turned his knee in a weird way. JT Brubaker hit the injured list too. They made 10 total roster moves yesterday, and I say this with all due respect to the members of last night's starting lineup. Last night's lineup did look like a spring training lineup. It looked like a Sacramento River Cats
Yeah.
lineup.
Yeah.
So when you kind of think of that big three that the Giants have of Willie Adames, Matt Chapman, Rafael Devers, Devers is the only one that's currently healthy. He's now really the elder statesman of that team, especially with those guys currently on the injured list. How do you think, based on your experience with Devers and kind of seeing his comments on Friday as well, how do you think Devers is going to maybe handle this, what is a very unique challenge of being around a lot of young guys trying to gather their bearings? And if you're not playing for the playoffs at this point, at least you're playing for the pride of not losing 100. How do you think he's equipped to handle, this very current situation with the Giants, a position that they did not envision themselves being in when they broke camp in spring training?
Yeah. The one thing you can say about Devers is that he might come to camp out of shape. He might have his little nicks here and there. Uh, but the one thing about Rafi is that Rafi plays. He posts from when he was like rarely did he go on the injured list. And a lot of times when he was like got injured, it was his fault. Like hamstrings, that's probably because he's not in shape, right? Like falling over his body. It's like, yeah, it's probably because and hurting his shoulders, probably because you fell over because you're not equipped, you're not in shape. But like I saw Rafi 2 years ago. I mean, when I say he was on like this, he came into the season, he had like a little shoulder issue that kept him out. Probably the same shoulders that probably he's having out there. So at some point, a little shoulder like issue that kept him out of beginning of spring training. And then he sort of played through it throughout the year. And then when we were in Colorado, he hurt his other shoulder. And at that time, he's hitting like 290, dude. He was on track to have like his greatest season as a Red Sox, like 28 home runs. And then he went into this skid where he was playing on two bad shoulders, but he refused to hit the injured list. And the Red Sox, their chance of making the playoffs were low, right? But like, no, Rafi was going to post. And I think he learned that from Xander Bogaerts, who is another guy who's very, very close to him, who plays through everything. And so the one thing you can expect him to do is to show up. I don't think he's going to be a leader of the younger guys. I think you're going to need somebody else for that. But the one thing he will do, he will post, he will play until the end of the season. It'll be game 162. It'll be meaningless, but Rafi will want to be in the lineup. And I do genuinely believe he loves the game of baseball, but to what extent does he love it to have himself ready physically? I don't know, but in terms of playing the game, not practice, not the game. We're not talking about practice. Like that, like he's not like you're not we're not talking about practice with Rafael Devers. We're talking about the game, right? When it turns to 7:05 or 7:10, when the lights come on, ultimately he's ready. And whatever injuries he has, a lot of them are because of him. But the one thing you can't say about him is that he's not going to post. So in this time, I expect him to play through the end of the season, be there, for a guy to maybe if his teammates are asking questions, look, he's not a bad teammate. He didn't suddenly become a bad, like people in Boston, I'm just speaking for Boston, didn't necessarily see him as a bad teammate until this whole thing came up. But before that, you couldn't say anything bad about Rafael Devers. I remember getting scalded by teammates about some of the things I've written about Rafael. Like, how could you say that about Rafi? I'm like, dude, it's not coming from me. Like, check with your man's up there. Like, that's who it's coming from. You want to get mad at somebody, get mad at them. I'm just relaying the message of how people perceive him in the front office. But in terms of his teammates, prior to that, like it was all love for Rafi. And I can't say it's like that in San Francisco, but in Boston, they rode for Rafi until it was like, nah, I can't do this anymore, bro. Like you took us to a certain place where it's like, yeah, now we're too far into the deep end. What you're doing is now is wrong. So I expect him to be able to be there and be a sounding board for some of the younger guys that are there and post and try to get to what numbers he might ideally try to get to because right now, I mean, he finishes below 800 OPS. It's like, dang, Rafi, like, are you really cooked? I don't know.
Yeah, you mentioned the injuries element of it, and he's played through a couple of different things, since he arrived in San Francisco. It kind of actually limited him as far as when he was able to make his debut at first base last year, but he played 163 last year. That doesn't happen by accident. But someone that we've yet to see in a Giants uniform also played for the Boston Red Sox. He did not get his homecoming this past weekend. Was Marcelo Mayer. He is currently dealing with a right foot bone bruise. That's a from a previous injury. That's different from the left forearm injury that he's recovering from. When we see him, it's still TBD. Bone bruises are not something to play
Yeah.
with. But of all the trades that the Giants made at the deadline, it's very safe to say that this was probably the most shocking, just as far as the return, in the sense that Meyer is obviously a guy that used to be a top 100 prospect, one of the Boston Red Sox best prospects. Obviously, things did not pan out the way either side would have wanted, and now he's pretty much getting a fresh start here in San Francisco. And from your vantage point, why did things in Boston not really materialize for Meyer? And were you kind of shocked that they were willing to move off him for, again, when you just consider, years of service time and positional value, 3.5 years of a reliever for versus 5.5 years of a middle infielder?
Yeah, it didn't work out because he couldn't stay for one, he couldn't stay healthy. Marcelo's never played 100 games at any level, be it the minors or big leagues. And we're talking about a guy that's what, you said he's 24, 23, 24,
23.
23 years old. Like when he walks, like it kind of looks like an like a guy that's had a little bit of tread on his tires um in the big leagues and he hasn't. And secondly, when I've spoken to some people, they feel like he's a guy that's otherworldly talented. But I mean, you look at the bat speed, like he has one of the more beautiful left-handed swings that you'll see. The pace in which he plays, like it's sort of Machado-esque in terms of how he plays, except he's like really, really like he's Marcelo's actually really, really fast. Um, but like in terms of like the pacing of the game in which he plays, like people could probably perceive it to be lackadaisical, but like that's kind of just the way he plays. But otherworldly talented, but very, very streaky hitter. He's gonna swing and miss a lot on breaking balls. And ultimately, I feel like they didn't feel like they were going to get as much production as him as they initially thought they would. Um, it was important for him to play 100 games this year just to himself, and he wasn't able to do it. I think he stopped right at 70 games, and he was okay at shortstop. He wasn't like a guy that you would look at and be like, okay, like he's someone that we can sort of build around at this position. And then you look down at the minor leagues and you're saying, okay, Franken Arias is here, one of the best prospects on baseball, a true shortstop. Uh, there's gonna be a lockout next year. He's probably not gonna be on the 40 man because we're gonna try to develop him as much as possible. So now we're looking into 2028, and possibly by that point, he would be ready. So then what do you do with Marcelo? Marcelo's kind of like the odd man out. That's just the way I see it. I could be wrong, but like just doing the math is like you have a guy down there at AAA who you believe is going to be the stuff, the shit. And then Marcelo Mayer has proven himself not to be healthy on the field. You need a relief help. And I think Craig Breslow has learned, uh, be it feeling his job was on the line or what, that you can't hoard prospects. That this whole thing of saying these guys of being the big three of Christian Campbell, I remember reading that. The big three, that's what they call them, the big three, Christian Campbell, Marcelo Mayer, Roman Anthony. And I remember I was talking to a scout who worked for the Red Sox, and he's like, dude, like that just goes to show you how young this front office is or how oblivious they are to how these things work. He says, one of the guys is going to be a bust. One of the guys is going to be just okay, possibly. And then one of the guys is going to be good. You usually go 1 for 3 on these things. That's just how it works out. And in true form, one of the guys might be a bust. I hope he's not, Christian Campbell. One of the guys might just be okay, Marcelo Mayer. And one of the guys I think is actually going to be good when he gets back on the field is Roman Anthony. And Craig Breslow, I believe, realized that. Like, oh, yeah, prospects are sort of are suspects until proven otherwise. And we have a chance, a window in the American League to be able to go out there and win this year because it's not that good of a league. Like you put the Red Sox in the National League or the Yankees in the National League, their record might be a little bit different than what it is now. And they might be the teams that are fighting and clawing to try to get in the playoff spot, a la the Miami Marlins or a team like that. Like they might be like around a 500 team. But the fact that you're looking at this situation and saying the American League is wide open. Everybody's using the same models with players. Why don't we zag when everybody's zigging and go with a different formula to just go out there and get the best guy available and give our team a chance to win? Because you rarely see that teams bunch together the way they are, and the amount of poor baseball that we've seen this year. It's wide open. Go who you need to get. Marcelo Mayer was not going to be a part of that conversation, particularly how their middle infielders are playing this year.
Yeah, it's fascinating when you think about, getting value from, where he kind of was at that point of his career. And it's funny. It's interesting when you look at the composition of the Red Sox. It kind of feels very similar to kind of the brand of baseball the Giants envision playing. It seems like it's really predicated on pitching and defense, and they probably hit a lot more than some of those championship teams. But that was the one thing that stuck out, this past weekend at Fenway is like they can pitch when you get to that bullpen. It's pretty nails,
Yeah,
and like Rafael or in particular, I'm like, this dude's flying around center field. So it's been pretty.
he's incredible to watch, man.
Yeah. So it's kind of fascinating to see that dichotomy of, where I guess kind of Meyer getting, kind of squeezed out, and it's kind of, despite him having that top prospect status, it's like where kind of are you in this arc? But if we're gonna stick on the subject of prospects, Julian, before I let you get out of here, I'm gonna
Hmm.
give you, I'm gonna let you ISO right here. I'm giving you the triangle. I don't if you can see it on the video. I'm holding up the triangle. I'm letting you
Okay.
ISO for this next one. I'm gonna dish you to rock. Everybody clear out. Because there's a certain prospect in the Giants farm system I know you know
Oh, I
very
know.
well.
Yeah,
That is one Scott Bandura. And it's not because, you've covered him. Maybe you've covered him, I don't know.
I never
But
covered
it's
Scott.
but
It's like my little brother.
but it's because the connection runs a little deeper than that. So, Julian, before I let you get out of here, Scott Bandura has been tearing it up with AAA Sacramento. Tell the people what they should know.
Look, man, I'm so proud of Scott. Like I feel like I text his dad. I was like, dude, people, when and if he gets called up, like I just might like cry because Scott was. I remember texting Scott when he just got um what was it cut in the Cape Cod League, and his dad was like, dang, he's really down on himself. Can you text him? And so I had been covering baseball for a couple years, and I noticed I was like, okay, like this guy didn't go to a big school. This guy didn't play in the Cape Cod League. This guy didn't play here. This guy didn't play there. But like they're all they're all in the big leagues, right? And so it changed my perspective of like you don't need to be the best, always have the shiniest leagues that you're playing in to make it to where you want to make it. And so ultimately what I told Scott, I remember I pulled over to text him. I was like, dude, forget the Cape Cod League. Like, it's just it means nothing in the grand scheme of things. The goal is for you to get drafted and to make it and have a chance to make the big leagues. And so the fact that he's here now, like, it's been incredible to watch because, and I think all players who are young, old, have kids need to look at him because development is not linear. Um, and in his case, he was a small kid. Scott was 5'1", 5'2", maybe when he was like 12 years old playing in the Little League World Series. Like, and was Monet Davis's catcher. Like a small, small, small kid. But you saw the fact that he was a good ball player. He competed. He's able to hold his own. And that matters. He played multiple sports, played soccer, uh, basketball through high school, like training those other competitive natures, those competitive instincts and those competitive and getting those different athletic muscles involved that are involved in being a complete athlete that ultimately made him a really good baseball player. And to see him go from like playing at Princeton, under recruited, but he figured, hey, I'm gonna work in front office. I remember telling Scott, Scott was texting me. His dad said, hey, he wants to work in front office after his freshman year. And I was like, okay, come with me to winter meetings. And I got him on the phone with Gabe Kapler at the time because Scott wanted to work in front office. And so baseball was always like, yeah, that's what I want to do. But like, I have these other skill sets. Obviously, he went to Princeton. He's a very, very bright kid. But to see him go there and then, okay, well, maybe it's not the front office. Maybe it's actually being a baseball player. And to go to single A, struggle, come back, figure it out. Go to high A, struggle, come back, figure it out. Go to double A, struggle, come back, figure it out. Go to triple A, and then just goes off. And just seeing the constant development in the way his brain calibrates to competition and to raising his game year after year after year to meet to meet the markers of where he wants to be, it's been incredible. And Scott is a guy that I always say like has we talking about floors, has a very, very sustainable to high floor. He's not going to strike out much. He's going to put the ball in play. He's going to steal bags. He's going to notice his trends and from pitchers and stuff like that, and what to pick up and what to look for and which counts. Like he's a bright, bright kid. He's always one step ahead. And so the thing, I don't know how he would be as a big leaguer. You can't predict that. A lot of things have to go right for you to be a good big leaguer. I've learned that in my years covering the game. Like, dude, this kid could be whatever, but like in the minors, but when he gets to the big leagues, it might not work out. That's fine. But one thing I tell you about him is that if he does get there, I would bet that I would give him a chance more than anybody, and probably my bias. I'll give it that to to figure something out and to have a career for himself. I don't know, but I would give him a chance to be able to do that. And just but to see him at the level he's at, and I don't know if it's going to happen this year. You know, lockouts this year, but that's not his goal. His goal is not to. You can't play GM. You just got to go out there and play. And I talked to Scott probably 2 to 3 times a week about that via text. And yeah, I'm just so happy for him and his family. They're just and his dad like they're community people. Like look up his dad, Steve Bandura, what he's done in South Philly, and like the big leagues is the icing on the cake. And if it can happen for that family, for the amount of stuff that they've poured into communities and continue to pour into communities, like that would be huge for not just Scott and his family, but Philadelphia and all of youth baseball across the country because he wasn't the showcase kid. He didn't go to the tournaments. He didn't have to go. He wasn't the Blaze Jordans, all these kids, these YouTuber kids. Like that wasn't him. Like he came from he just played baseball and went to really good schools, and it just happened to work out. So I really hope and pray that this happens for him, and I think it will at some point. He just has to be patient. He's doing really well in AAA, but This is a sign to all kids. My son wants to play baseball. My daughter wants to play softball. I'm gonna be like, look at Scott Bandura and what he's been able to do. Don't look at the Garrett Coles of the world. Those guys were there from the jump. Look at these guys. And he's proven himself to be what he is right now, and I'm very, very happy for him.
Julian, I could feel the love that you have for Scott Bandura, and I appreciate the love of you coming on the show. Julian, where can we find your work?
Man, you can find me at by Julian Mac on Twitter. I believe it's the same on it's the same on Instagram. And then you can find my work on CBSSports.com.
Find him on CBS.com. Find him on Twitter. Julian, last question, really quick before I let you go. You used to cover the A's
Oh man.
in a previous life when they were still the Oakland A's.
Uh-huh.
You gave Vallejo a shout out already. What do you miss about the Bay?
Man, the people. Like I like just being with you this past weekend, it reminded me of just the welcoming the culture, the welcomingness. I don't even know if that's a word, but like how welcome you feel, how it feels like the Bay Area feels like down south, but in California, where people invite you in, feed you, love you, hug on you, tell you when you're wrong, and then and joke on you. But at the end of the day, it's just like all love, and I really always just love that about the Bay. Like Marcus Thompson, like that's a guy like who I love and adore. Like I still talk to him probably once a week, a mentor of mine, and he helped me so much. But he was also really, really hard on me. But you always felt it came from a loving place. So yeah, yeah, the love and probably the Mexican food too, because bro, it's
I wasn't gonna say it. I wasn't gonna say it. That was
There's
not
struggle
what I
ever
was.
since, dude. Taco El Gordo, I love in on Hesperian Boulevard in San Lorenzo or San Leandro. I love you, man. I miss you.
I know you're Harlem till you die, but in my opinion, you got the honorary Bay Area status. Julian, I appreciate you coming on the show, and I'll catch you around.
No doubt.
Thank you once again to Julian for taking some time out of his very busy day again as the national baseball reporter over there at CBS Sports. Go follow him on Twitter. Go read his work again over at CBS. And before getting out of here, just wanted to run through the entirety of the Giants' road trip again. They, in addition to getting swept by the Boston Red Sox, they also lost 2 of 3 to the Cleveland Guardians. They have still yet to win a series since the trade deadline. There was also a lot of roster moves that were made on Monday in what was a 5-0 win against the Cincinnati Reds, but I'm going to save that and a larger discussion about where the team kind of stands for next week's podcast with Willie Adames and Victor Barracoto and JT Brubaker, as I mentioned, all going on the injured list. But game 1 in Cleveland, Carson Whisenhunt was roughed up. He allowed a career-high 7 runs over 4 innings. I think Joe Adell himself had a career-high 6 RBIs, but we did see a very impressive performance from Trent Harris out of the bullpen. 2 scoreless innings, 5 strikeouts. Bryce Eldridge hit his 14th homer of the season as well. Game 2, it was a very rare type of win, which was a 1-0 win, and we just saw some absolutely nails pitching performances up and down with this Giants team. Beginning with Matt Wilkinson, who made his Giants debut. He threw 2 scoreless innings. That was followed by 5 innings of bulk relief from Adrian Hauser, who, as a quick note, he's actually going to start today if you're listening, that being Tuesday. But he'll get another start, just his second since being put in the bullpen back in late June. And it'll be interesting to see if he can continue the success that he's maintained over these last 2 months. But to really lock in that win on Wednesday against the Guardians, we just saw an absolutely gutsy 6-out save from Dylan Smith to secure, again, what has been the only win, or what was the only win, rather, of that road trip. Thursday was the rubber match against the Guardians. The Giants lost 5-2 as another really mixed bag outing from Landon Roop. 5 1/3 innings, 4 runs, 3 earned runs. And it was the 6th time that he's walked at least 4 batters in a single start this year. It was the 11th time he's walked at least 3. We've talked about some of the walk issues with Roop, and they continued to persist in that outing against the Guardians. Willie Adames did return to the lineup, and not only returned to the lineup, but he hit not only his 20th homer of the season, but the 200th homer of his career. And as I mentioned, Willie actually did hit the injured list yesterday being Monday, not with the back ailment, but with the left elbow sprain from the aforementioned sliding into Connor Wong during that game on Sunday. Game one in Boston, that was a 6-4 loss in what was Rafael Devers' first game back at Fenway Park in more than a year. Logan Webb endured his shortest start of the season, that being 2 2/3 innings. He allowed 5 runs, all of them coming with 2 outs in the bottom of the third inning, and the last 3 batters that he faced, just to give you an idea of how the wheels really came off here, which was a walk, a hit by pitch, and another walk. And it's just kind of one of those nights for Logan. And it was a very, odd night considering that going into that start, he'd only allowed 2 earned runs over his first three in the month of August. And you were kind of looking at a potential, second NL pitcher of the month. But, given how his last outing against the Red Sox went down, probably not going to be in the cards to repeat with that award. The bullpen did keep them in the game. Also saw a 2-run homer from Drew Gilbert. Rafael Devers homered in his second at bat back in Fenway as well. There was definitely, as I mentioned, no shortage of boos for Devers over the course of the weekend. He came to the plate 13 times and he was booed 13 times. Again, that shouldn't really come as a surprise. And again, based off the conversation with Julian, I would imagine as time goes on, those boos and their vitriol kind of dissipate over time. But that is for another day. Game two in Boston, that was a 3-2 loss. It was the 11th walk-off loss that the Giants have endured this season, and it was quite easily the toughest loss of the trip just because of how well the Giants as a whole pitched leading up into blowing what was a 2-0 lead going into the bottom of the ninth inning. We saw 5 2/3 really strong innings from Blade Tidwell on a raucous Saturday night at Fenway Park. It was easily, not just Tidwell's best pitching performance of the year so far, but again, to do it in that environment is just very, very encouraging for, what he's able to do going forward. And he actually did mention that he hasn't been in an environment like that since probably Omaha when he was still in college. And from there, we saw a couple of very strong innings of relief from Carson Seymour, although he did allow the first 2 batters that he faced in the bottom of the eighth inning to reach base. That's when the Giants call in Dylan Smith. Smith allows a single just over the outstretched glove of Willie Adames to load the bases. So Giants are clinging to a 2-0 lead. Dylan Smith finds himself with the bases loaded, no outs, going against the heart of the Boston Red Sox order, that being Wilson Contreras, Wilyer Abreu, and Adley Rutschman. And he's not only able to not limit or quote unquote limit the damage, he didn't allow a run at all. It was just an absolutely nails, gutsy relief appearance from Dylan Smith. He did go back out for the ninth inning. He did walk the first batter that he faced on in a pretty uncompetitive at bat. That prompts manager Tony Vitello to go get Sam Henches, and then the Red Sox, through a series of plays here and there, they're able to get the walk-off win. And it was actually a very interesting way that the game ended because it was bases loaded, I believe 1 out, and I think it was Wilyer Abreu who hits, pretty hard grounder to Bryce Eldridge. Eldridge dives, knocks it down, spins, probably had a little more time than he think, but he fires a throw that was about 20 feet short. So catcher Andrew Kisner has to kind of go back and just to make sure he keeps the ball in front of him, have to lean back, knock it down. But in doing so, he takes his foot off of the base. The runner coming home is deemed safe. The Red Sox win. The Giants challenge it. So you kind of have this really weird scene where the Red Sox have spilled onto the field. They're celebrating, but then you have the Giants kind of on the other side of the field, just kind of waiting, hoping that the replay review overturns the play. But Kisner himself said he didn't think that the play was going to get overturned. And then game three, a 5-4 loss. This was Matt Wilkinson getting his first kind of real start here, and he ends up with a pretty rough line. It was 3 2/3 innings, 4 runs, but he could have gotten out of it if he had a little more luck. That is to say, he could have allowed just the 4 runs over, or rather 2 runs rather, over 4 innings. Basically what happened is in the bottom of the 4th inning, Connor Wong hits this towering fly ball to left field. Victor Barracoto feels the wall, scales the wall. He appeared to make what would have been an inning-ending catch, but you could kind of hear the clang off the monster from the press box. So the Red Sox review it. Instead of an inning-ending flyout, it gets overturned into an RBI double. Wilkinson is taken out of the game. And from there, the Red Sox score what would end up being 5 unanswered runs. Christian Koss did have a little league homer, but Aroldis Chapman and the rest of the Red Sox bullpen, held it down and swept the Giants. So again, the Giants are still looking for their first series win since the trade deadline. It was the first time, interestingly enough, every series leading up to the Red Sox series, the Giants had lost in the exact same way, which was losing 2 out of 3. So the Red Sox series was the first series since the deadline where they kind of broke away from that quote unquote formula where they were swept opposed to just losing 2 out of 3. But as I mentioned, they're off to a promising start by winning against the Cincinnati Reds on Monday. It was a 5-0 win. Rafael Devers homered. Again, there was a slew of roster moves. Carson Whisenhunt exited that game with what was described as left elbow pain. So we'll get into more of what happened on Monday as well as the rest of the week in the next podcast, but just wanted to briefly touch on that and briefly touch on the entirety of the road trip as a whole. But again, thank you to Julian McWilliams for hopping on for the first portion of the show. My name is Justice L. Santos. This is the Splash Considerations podcast, and we will catch you in the next one.